Well, welcome everybody to the latest episode of the HR Tech Chat video podcast. And today I have couple of very interesting guests, and this is just an awesome story, and um, uh, very excited for today's podcast. With us today we have Stephen Jiang, who is CEO and founder of hireEZ. And there's a little bit of story behind that, which we'll get to in a moment. And we also have Shannon Pritchett, who is head of marketing there at hireEZ. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah. Really looking forward to today's conversation. A couple weeks ago, I was attending virtually to your event, and you had a very, very exciting announcement, and sort of the nice kickoff point for our conversation today. Hiretual was the previous name of your company, and now it's hireEZ. Congratulations, first of all. That's a big deal. What was some of the thinking behind that?
Sure. So Shannon, you can give your comments later. But in short, we chose to rebrand Hiretual to hireEZ to align with our company's mission to create a new category. The new category is called outbound recruiting. So basically, our mission is to make the outbound recruiting easy. Okay, we want to make it easy for recruiters to bring jobs to people. So our vision, also 3 words: jobs, find people. Okay, so our mission, outbound recruiting made easy. So the rebranding is the kickoff effort for that newly upgraded mission and vision.
Shannon, anything to add there? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited about this new category. With the new category comes a whole new company. And so, I've been in this industry for a very long time. I don't want to date myself, but we'll say a previous economy. And back in 2008, when I was really finding my craft as an actual recruiter within this space, that it was a very uncertain time to be a recruiter. I think just about all of us had every single position eliminated. I was working for T-Mobile in the call center at the time, and believe it or not, I would take calls just to keep it my job, right? I was certainly not recruiting. And back then, as Stephen said, the economy was the exact opposite. People needed to find jobs. We didn't have very many jobs. We had a ton of people out of work. And there was a lot of inbound recruitment activity that really launched and accelerated, with that. And employers got to be a lot more selective when it came to finding candidates, right? We all remember those Silicon Valley interview questions, right? Like, how many tennis balls fit into a bus, and, the silly nature of making candidates jump through hoops. And since then, we've evolved into a more candidate-centric candidate experience model within talent acquisition. And with the current state of our economy, where there are more jobs than people, that's why we wanted to change our mission and align our product with what works today. And something that hasn't changed, although technology has, recruiters really haven't changed how they find and identify talent. They're still using the same outdated methods and methodology that they did 15, 20 years ago than they are today. And what worked back then doesn't necessarily work today. So it's a whole new company, it's a whole new mission, it's a change in mindset. And we're very excited to be able to help recruiters make their jobs easier, because it's as difficult and as in demand as it ever has been. And so we're glad that we can, make technology more readily available for them, and to give them the time back to concentrate on, the soft skill part of their day-to-day job.
I love the way you describe it, and Shannon, thanks for kind of delving a little bit into what outbound recruiting is. A couple of things that come to mind for me, just observations. One is, the previous name of the company, Hiretual, kind of matched what the normal was back then. Recruiting had become sort of virtual. And
Yes.
it was and I liked the play on words, Hiretual. I liked that. But in any event, you know, it's not just so the technology has changed and it's made it possible to do outbound recruiting where you can go one-to-one, go out to find those candidates and interact with them one-to-one as a recruiter to get that that relationship going early and to find those folks instead of just waiting for them to come to you, which is a very inefficient way of doing things, even back when it was the only thing you could do, right? And I think that's what's interesting is that the evolution of the technology has helped to nudge along attitudes to this point where job seekers actually may expect to be found by a recruiter online. So they're expecting that. So, and the other thing that I just want to throw in there is that this is almost like the old pre-internet, you know, Paleolithic era.
That's right. Headhunting.
Right,
Yeah.
headhunters. I mean, yeah, that's all I heard about when I was growing up, and I'm dating myself now too. Oh, Dad got called by a headhunter, you know, and so it's almost it's very interesting, and it's funny because and then we'll kind of move on here in a second. But the one other thing I want to get out there is that the old way without the internet, right? Just the old analog way of doing it with headhunting, you know, it was very personalized, but at the same time, it also wasn't efficient. So, in a sense, right? So now we have all of the good of the old ways with the newfound efficiency of technology. It's almost those things converging, which is incredibly interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when you know, and one of the key components that still work really well today are referrals. You know, and to me, that is a form of outbound recruiting that we still can capitalize on. But you know, the market conditions need to be right. One, to launch a new category, and two, to really drive change. And that's what we are seeing today. You know, recruiters don't have time to do the old type of recruiting, you know, the cold calling. Well, I don't know any recruiter that really cold calls anymore, and you can use a product like ours and those cold calls become warm, but you know, they don't have time to do that. And casting a wide net and spraying and praying, as we call our posting and praying, you know, is not as effective as it used to be. It's a great brand opportunity. But now, you know, we need to bring in a more proactive mindset, a more proactive approach, and be able to give recruiters and TA teams the data that they need to make more intelligent decisions. And so that is something that you didn't have, you know, previously, that we can provide nowadays. The beauty about, like, let's say our product is, you know, so this is a good explanation of it. You know, we have over 45 different data sources. So in using our product, you can search 45 systems at once and give you access to, you know, almost 1 billion people, 750 million people, you know, within that system. And it's not like, oh my God, that's a lot to go through. That's when the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence and data really combine to make outbound recruiting not only more successful for you as a recruiter and your organization, but also, again, we're trying to make it easy. And the easiest way we can do this is to help match those jobs to the people as fast as we can to give recruiters back the time that they need.
Yeah. Stephen, maybe you could
Yes.
delve a little bit into this. I'd like to dive a little bit because AI is one of my favorite subjects in the future of work. What's an example of how the AI and machine learning in your solution helps it uniquely or in an uncommon way to facilitate outbound recruiting?
Yeah, and so we first brought the AI to sourcing. So we said AI sourcing, and nowadays, I think almost every vendor uses AI sourcing. Okay, so and we created back in 2016, and the AI-driven sourcing basically made the sourcing extremely efficient, right? And when it comes to sourcing, it's about how to process the data to have a more holistic profiles. And then we need to index and analyze the data in a machine learning way. Okay, and then leverage the recommendation system and leverage the match engine to do the quick ranking and also the profile enrichment, and to show the recruiters the best results based on their filters, right? And that's basically the AI search, okay, AI sourcing. But that's not enough. And then more and more our users, we have a huge user base and over 100,000 people, recruiters globally. So they have been asking for many AI empowered features in many scenarios. So for example, how to quickly identify the right candidates during their profile review. Okay, so that's very challenging for natural language processing. And they also ask for more AI and machine learning capabilities in the engagement, how to make the engagement more customized, how to make more insightful actions, right? For example, when, how, what to engage with the right candidates. Okay. Those are all great scenarios in the in talent acquisition process with machine learning technologies.
That's interesting to me. So in other words, if I can just kind of unpack this a little bit. So AI in your solution will help inform recruiters on the best way to interact with candidate A versus candidate B versus candidate C. That's what I'm hearing, and also the it helps with sourcing in a huge way. And by the way, that makes a lot of sense to me, because sourcing is one of those complex variable workflows that are sort of the next level of automation. And I know we're not calling it automation because it's more than that, but it's one of those one of those time consuming activities in recruiting that if you can apply some machine learning and AI to it, you're going to be saving talent acquisition departments time. Yes. and making them more accurate and therefore efficient. To me, accuracy and efficiency are very much go hand in hand when we're talking about these sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. So, and actually our BI team and marketing team, they have the benchmark from our customers, and we cut more than 50% of their time from the sourcing process, and that's a huge improvement, right? So seriously, in the past years, AI, machine learning has been a buzzword everywhere, but it's really hard to find the measurable value in a real use case, the scenario. And we are very rigorous at measuring how AI truly bring the efficiency.
Yeah. Now, I recall that AI is one of the, I believe, 5 pillars of outbound recruiting that I think that you folks have sort of established or stated. What are the other of the 5? I think it's 5 of them.
4 or 5. Shannon absolutely will elaborate and give all the details about what is outbound recruiting in our definition. Okay, so Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, so artificial intelligence, the reason why we put that as a pillar is for exactly what we've been talking about: the speed, the accuracy, right? You need it to be successful, especially today. And I'm so glad we've gone from before it was a buzzword, it was actually a fear of elimination within our job. Can the machine replace a person? And we stand behind a product that actually empowers the person with that technology, doesn't necessarily eliminate them. Drives that decision. Sourcing plays a huge part of those pillars as well, being able to go out and self-identify, and that having that proactive mindset. Also, engagement is a huge component of it as well. So you have to have the different engagement. And what we mean by engagement is just because you found someone doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be interested. And keep in mind, right, that it is a very much candidate-driven marketplace nowadays, right? People can pick and choose as much as they want. That's where we got the term the great resignation, right? It's because people have the choice. And so, what our product does is we have a wonderful drip campaign, which it's kind of like a built-in light CRM, which allows recruiters to effectively continue to message and deliver the candidates. And, we're proud users of our own product within our own company. And our recruiting staff has been so wildly successful with our drip campaigns and being able to reach candidates by just using that automation as part of their feature. And then we also talked about data. Is how can data be played within this? Are you using data to make better decisions? Are you looking at data to help guide your search, to help tell you who you can be identified? And so that all plays a huge part in outbound recruiting. And then I'm going to throw in, diversity, DE&I. That's a huge, huge thing that outbound recruiting can help make successful for any organization. And we've seen the movement to, be more proactive with DE&I, and we've seen searches up on our product by 250%, but they only account for about 10% of the actual searches. And when you use a product like hireEZ, we have the largest database of DE&I talent that's accessible for you to have access to. And so we're really allowing recruiters to help go out there and proactively identify those actual different diverse talents, underrepresented talents that can drive change within the organization. And that change is coming from, an economic demand as well. And so, those are some of the pillars that we think will make outbound recruiters successful.
Yeah. It's so fantastic to be in a position in the position that you folks are to kind of throw down the gauntlet or plant the flag. Maybe that's a better term. Is these are the 5 pillars of outbound recruiting. Outbound recruiting is as just a workflow or a practice. It's been around for a while, right? People have been doing outbound recruiting, but nobody has actually said, exactly. So, I mean, great, I think, timing, sense of timing here, sort of seizing the moment. A couple of things that you mentioned in the 5 pillars, Shannon, was the drip campaigns, which of course involve lots of email, I imagine, right? And that to me is huge. I mean, if you really dissect recruiters' day-to-day work, there's several things they're doing that's incredibly time-consuming, repetitive, or just tedious, right? And sending out emails, and we've all been our computer. We all have that day where it seems like all morning we're just sending emails and scheduling, getting calendar invitations out or receiving them and figuring out what times work and what don't. And by the next thing you know, it's noontime and you haven't gotten to any of the meat of your day yet. So I can't imagine what it's like for recruiters. So to have that makes entirely good sense to me. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And then the DE&I piece of it, obviously, at first blush, it seems like kind of almost a bold, it's DE&I is part of outbound recruiting, but when you really think about it, that is very intuitive, right? I mean, you're going to improve your accuracy in DE&I by several orders of magnitude by having a strong, solid, robust outbound recruiting solution and workflow in place. And I guess the other piece of that is, I think outbound recruiting is probably a compliance play as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it could be. Depend on what you mean by compliance.
Let's say you're about federal. Sorry to interrupt. I'm really sorry. But let's say if you're a federal contractor and you have certain,
CCPA. You're talking about CCPA, right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely one of the favorite things for those big organizations, decision makers, and they need to measure and they need to track, and also and they need to see reports, right, every month or anytime. Based on their cycle. And outbound, because this is a very proactive process, everything is measurable, okay? So inbound is something out of your control, and you put the ads over there and the job posting and really not sure when people will come, okay? There might be many, there might be small, but the outbound and things for the CCPA compliance, and things are more predictable, controllable.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
there's a,
how are you as an organization, going to make the investment into hiring underrepresented talent if you're just going to sit back and wait for them to come to you as an organization, right? To me, that shows a lack of commitment and a lack of investment into, a company's greatest asset, which is people.
Yeah. It's what, this is kind of an interesting segue into one of the things I think we wanted to talk about, and that is some of the similarities. We don't have to spend too much time on it, but some of the similarities or analogies between inbound and outbound recruiting and inbound and outbound marketing. One thing that comes to mind right off the bat is inbound marketing, obviously a very novel, innovative concept, say maybe 10, 15 years ago. Right. But we got to the point where it was sort of a point of diminishing returns, or how do I put this? So there were just a preponderance of leads, right? Just a slew of leads, a high volume of leads, but many low value leads in the mix, and no way to really, decipher between them all, and so what do you do there? Now, same thing with inbound recruiting, right? You're bringing in a bunch of people. You may have a fantastic inbound recruiting system, and it may actually be attracting a whole slew of people. Maybe you don't have a problem there, but you still have the problem of, okay, who's who, and which of these leads or candidates, we'll call them candidates, leads are analogous here, right? Which of these candidates is a good potential new hire, and which of them, no offense, but probably not the greatest new hire, at least for us, So there's that. And how are you going to sift through that in an efficient way when you're trying to be as pinpointed and targeted as possible with your DE&I? That's one. There are other similarities, I think, between inbound and outbound recruiting and marketing. I think there's some others. Anything else here? I mean, trying to think, there's account-based marketing, which is kind of like outbound recruiting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's you're right. So the whole MQL, marketing qualified leads, 100% inbound initiative and inbound approach. Absolutely. And then, the shift now and that we're doing as a marketing department is a more strategic ABM style, which is, in my opinion, outbound marketing, right? We are going out and we're identifying the companies that have not yet engaged in our product that we think would be very successful with us. And we've completely evolved from that approach. And so there is a lot of similarities. Stephen and I always joke around about, we would like to see recruitment teams structured like marketing teams. And to me, it makes complete sense. Brent, you talk about email, how that's such a time-consuming task for recruiters, and it very much is, which is often why they're templated. But we have an email marketer on our team. Imagine that skill set, somebody who's skilled at nurturing and converting over on the recruitment side. I mean, it'd be fabulous. And so, would love, my vision at talent acquisition is not that they're structured like marketing, but they start to bring in more of those marketing elements into their recruitment system. And you can definitely do that with a product like ours. And the last piece too, when we're talking about marketing and recruiting, what makes it so easy, I think, on the tech side with what we do is the seamless integration with all of our systems. And this was the last pillar I didn't mention. And that is so important with outbound recruiters as well, to be able to do that as well, because every recruitment team will have an applicant tracking system. A lot of them have CRMs, right? And then we sit on top of that funnel with the whole hireEZ's outbound approach. And so you do need that seamless integration into your systems, because, back in 2000 and the 90s, when we started to set up these applicant tracking systems, the theory was in the future that this is going to be the greatest repository for us to be able to select candidates. These are every single candidate that has told us they are interested in our organization. 20 years later, right? Millions and millions of candidates in your database. how do you source that?
Yeah,
How
exactly.
have those people changed? I mean, they've matured, their job has changed. These are all candidates who have identified and have been silver medalists and say, hey, I want to work for this company. And then that's the beauty about the integration with our product is we can update all that information with you. And then one quick search within our system. Now you're using not only our data sources that I mentioned earlier, but you're using the greatest data source, which is your own applicant tracking system.
Yeah.
Spot on. So completely agree with what you just discussed. So Brent, I think Shannon is qualified to give her opinions about recruiting and marketing. So she was in a sourcing and recruiting community, well known and well established, but now she's heading our marketing function. So she knows there's two departments very, very well and a lot of almost the same elements. Okay, so and one thing I want to say about outbound versus inbound, it's really just about what is your first step. If your first step is to identify and to make your target very identical, okay, you know who you want to target, right? That turns things, the workflow into outbound already. So we are not saying, hey, with outbound recruiting, your whole department cannot use inbound anymore. No, it's a coexist. Okay, so coexist inbound and outbound, just like a marketing. Our marketing, inbound marketing, will help soften the outbound names, okay, and help those accounts and easier to respond our outbound emails, right? So for recruiting, similar. So we want to make our product work very well with what have been there in inbound workflow. Okay, for integrations and for the rediscovery, and you have a lot of inbound leads, inbound candidates sitting there, but they are very old data already. So how to make those data meaningful, make hires from your internal data. That is very great example, but about how to leverage the outbound technology to make your inbound higher ROI, right? And also we are talking about the ABM, but in a recruiting, I think that's also very similar. In my opinion, people should adopt that strategy. And I observe one customer of ours and K Basement, okay, and they located in Dallas. They are doing ABM in recruiting, but that's a very successful recruiting firm. Okay, so and we see that. So I think I am motivated by so many innovations in our industry, in the recruiting industry as well. Okay, so but we just need to work together, right? And all of us work together to give the category name and give the pattern and give the model and give and summarize the best practice and the playbook for people to replicate the success.
Those are some great points. Absolutely. And if I were to synthesize it, I'd say that what I'm hearing you say is that, this isn't an either or, this isn't a binary thing. This is, this is just a shifting of the calculus, right? This is, your first foot forward, sorry for the stuttering there. Your first foot forward there is the outbound recruiting, right? That's what you're thinking about first, is and that to me is that's sort of a fun, if you really think about it, that's a fundamental shift in attitude, right? Because if you're as a recruiting organization, if you're thinking about in an outbound, if you have an outbound attitude first, right? You're not forgetting inbound or neglecting inbound, but if your first attitude is outbound, that's proactive versus reactive recruiting right there. You fundamentally, changed your attitude, your fundamental philosophy around recruiting, and that's incredibly. I mean, that I think that can't be overstated. one thing I wanted to go back to, also what Shannon said around, you know, structuring a recruiting department in an analogous way to a marketing department, maybe, right? That's super interesting, right? Because recruiting is, it's funny, you know, like recruiters, it's just recruiters. I mean, there are others in talent acquisition, but when it comes to recruiters, they're expected to do so many different things. And then on one hand, that makes them very well-rounded professionals, at least the good ones, right? But at the same time, that's a lot to ask of one person, and to sort of divide and conquer, you know, the delegation of various tasks. There's a term that's on the tip of my tongue for that that's escaping me at the moment. Yeah, it's that makes a lot of sense. And you know, also doing it that way, you also are able to, one of our themes this year at 360 Insights that we're looking at is talent acquisition and the increasing sort of sales mentality that people are starting to apply to recruiting. And to me, you know, you have a much better chance of being able to live up to that creed, I guess, if you would call it, as if you have an outbound recruiting, a solid outbound recruiting system in place. And one last thing I was going to mention also to this point is around this theme is the idea that, you know, just as you in marketing, you'd be nurturing leads, you know, before you even think they have a need for your product, you just want them to be in the ecosystem. You know, you want to be nurturing candidates before they even are going to be candidates, right? And if you have a strong outbound recruiting program, you can do that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And also, Brand, and outbound recruiting, it's a term, it's a category, it's a behavior, but it's also a very cost-effective and cost-efficient business strategy. So we don't want to just promote a concept, right? I am not a good storyteller. So we need to see if this is a better strategy for recruiting, right? And at least from the business owner or business decision makers, they need to see this as a higher ROI. Let's take the sales and marketing as an analogy again. For us, and we measure our inbound customer acquisition cost versus outbound acquisition cost. It's a 4 times difference.
wow.
4 times. So it's just a quarter of the cost if this is from outbound. So how precious, how valuable the proactiveness is. So, and that basically tells us one signal very clear. If the recruiter is claiming, I am a very proud outbound recruiter. As a CEO, I am willing to pay at least 50% more to that person.
Yeah, and you know what, that 4 times number right there, you know, when you're dealing with sort of nudging people out of well set ideas, right? Because inbound recruiting, you know, is being sort of the the way that we've done things for so long, right? It's sort of set in stone in a sense, right? I won't say stone, but it's kind of, they're set in their ways, and it's also kind of it can be a sunk cost, right? And so, or at least a sunk cost in terms of a like an emotional sunk cost, if you will, right? And so if you want to kind of jolt people out of that and really get them to start seeing how things can be different, there are a few better ways to do that than to present them with a very compelling essentially ROI number, which is what you shared. So I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. Stephen, I'm looking at the time, and I just want to make sure we get this one question in here, because I wanted to ask you guys, congratulations on the significant VC funding that you recently brought into the company. The actual number escapes me at the moment, but I know it's in the millions, and several millions. And I wanted to just ask you, How are you going to be allocating some, to the extent that you can answer this? I understand some of this is a secret sauce, but to the extent that you can answer, how are you going to be allocating this, or sort of using this to invest in outbound recruiting? What are some of your plans?
Yes, it's a great question. So it's a not couple $1,000,000, it's a tens of $1,000,000. Okay,
Yeah.
so um, um, to me, it's very clear. All the money, the $26 million, will be fully dedicated on this new mission, outbound recruiting. There will be three areas we will allocate the resources. First, technology, right? And no matter how and what we say, at the end, we need the technology to fulfill what we promise. Okay, and outbound recruiting is hard, very, very hard. If it's not that hard, and we will see all the outbound activity already, right? So it's hard. How to make it easier so that recruiters, okay, and all of us will adopt, okay, recruiters and hiring managers, all of them will adopt this outbound recruiting. That requires technology, but technology is limited. And the other part is a community. And we need to cultivate a community, outbound community, to evangelize the outbound recruiting, this strategy, and also share the best practice, the playbook of outbound recruiting, how to be successful. Okay, and it's not only speech, it's about daily work. And what is the process? What is the productivity? What is the dashboard? And what is the content message? And what is the timing? So everything, it's very concrete. We need to have a bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger community to promote, okay, that outbound recruiting. But community is also worthy of a lot of investment, okay. And who will invest in the community? We have to lead that efforts. Of course, my team and I, we welcome many vendors. They also follow us and join this outbound recruiting category. Okay, then basically the community will have more resources. Okay, but at least for now, we will be the first vendor to invest in the community and cultivate the best practice. Okay, and the third part, it's really about the overall the sales and marketing, right? And we need to make sure that more and more accounts, more and more companies, they will hear about this story and hear about this strategy, and they will also, some of them, percentage of them, will be the pioneer to deploy the outbound recruiting process, and they will start to share. And also when people switch from company A to B, we also bring that best practice, right? So sales and marketing and our revenue growth must be there if we succeed, and we will have more resources. Okay. But that's the last piece, and we need to prioritize technology and prioritize community before our revenue.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty methodical. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and it sounds like you've thought about it quite a bit. And one thing I wanted to get in here is that, in terms of the 5 pillars of outbound recruiting, hireEZ has capabilities around all five of those now, and so the job now within the technology is to build on those. So I wanted to make sure that our viewers were aware of that. And one of the things that occurred to me is, it was something that you said a couple of minutes ago, Stephen, around your plans for the future, and that is, outbound recruiting is a real regiment to it. There's an ethic to it. It's not something that you can just kind of like set and forget. It's a much more sort of involved type of recruiting in a sense. And it's proactive, and it requires persistence. So it's great to have tools that enable recruiters, so inclined proactive recruiters, to actually do what they want to do.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. And also, Shannon's team is working extremely closely with the community and with a lot of very successful and also very innovative recruiters in our space, recruiters and sources. So we also are very open-minded and open to integrate partnership with other vendors in our space. As you said, we have this whole workflow functions already, but we don't require our users and our customers say only use hireEZ. No, we wanted to use outbound recruiting. It doesn't have to be hireEZ. Okay, so if they use other vendors engagement, fine, we integrate with them as long as the other side also that are open-minded, right? So, and we will work with many technologies in this space to make our users workflow truly powerful and sufficient for outbound recruiting.
I love it. I love it. Working together. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both for being our guests today. This has been a fantastic, very, intriguing, interesting conversation. One of my favorites topics. Thank you so much.